KC Joyner joins us now, Week 9. A lot to dive into here. Interesting week, Casey, as let's start with tonight. You got Dallas and Tennessee. Based on what we saw with Washington, this East has now become very interesting, and that means tonight's game is very interesting. If Dallas can get this one tonight, you got 4-4, 4-4, 5-3. Philly plays Washington twice. This thing just got really interesting with that Washington loss.
Oh, it did. It's definitely, there's no team that looks that much stronger than the rest, obviously, except for the Giants, but it's a three-way race, and that makes it used to be in the day, it used to be a slugfest in the East, and now it's not quite as good as teams as it was in the past years, but that's still going to be just as competitive and still going to be just as intriguing, so that makes it fun.
No doubt. So when you look at the game tonight, you got Tennessee and Dallas, you got Amari Cooper. We touched on this game a little bit on Friday, but just to dig a little deeper here, obviously Dallas wants to run the ball, but are you intrigued on how they're going to use Cooper?
I would be surprised if they didn't send him a ton of targets now and for the rest of the season. I do this analysis for ESPN's Insider section where I look at playoff strength for players for the rest of the season from a fantasy perspective, and Cooper's got just a ridiculously favorable schedule. I talk about the red, yellow, green matchups for cornerbacks. He's got green all the way through until Week 17. I mean, I would be surprised if they don't try and start making him a centerpiece of their offense right now.
Huh. Give me a reason how Tennessee can go on the road and maybe win the game tonight.
They need their offensive line to play to its talent level. Coming into this game, they rank 31st in my weeks 4 through 8 grading of offensive lines. They're doing bad in run blocking. They're doing bad in pass blocking. They need to be able to get to at least their talent level is better than that. So, I mean, they should be at least – I mean, they've had top 10 material in the last couple of years. So if they can block at a much better level, that's the way they're going to have to win is by winning up front. But Dallas is ranking in the top 10 in my run defense metrics over the past 5 weeks. So I think that Tennessee's going to have some problems.
All right, that's the game tonight. 97.3 ESPN has it. You can hear that game with coverage starting at 8 o'clock. Let's look at the matchups from week number 9 in the books. And, Chicago goes and blows the doors off of Buffalo. Let's talk about Chicago a little bit here. They're 5-3. They're scoring, but everybody likes their defense. Does this team halfway through look like a playoff team?
It looks like a playoff team, but it is a limited playoff team. Trubisky's been putting up some good numbers, but it's a lot on screen passes, and he's doing a lot of scrambling. They're still not as good in the passing game as they should be. They've got some tough matchups in the passing game coming up, too. They've got Minnesota. Detroit's got a shutdown corner in Slay. So they've got some matchups where they're going to have to do more. And plus, when they get in the later stretch of the season, like when they get in weeks 14 and 15 and play the Rams to play Green Bay, you're going to have to start putting up some points. Even against Minnesota, you're probably going to have to do that. So I think their offense can do that, but you're not going to do that all through screens and scrambles. You're going to start hitting vertical passes that they're not hitting right now.
Peterman's got to be the worst quarterback ever.
Actually, Doug Farrar, who is a guy who works for USA Today, he actually did an analysis on that, and it has some numbers to back it up. It says, yep, he actually is the worst quarterback of all time.
Kansas City beats Cleveland 37-21. Another big game from Mahomes, 375. Hunt with 91, Kelsey 99 receiving. I mean, they're just all over the place, and Cleveland having their own issues. But Kansas City going on the road to just put up almost 40. How do you look at Kansas City, and how do you figure a way to slow them down?
I think what you have to do with Kansas City is just assume that you're going to have to try and get into a shootout, because most offenses, you're not going to be the 1990 Giants and slow these guys down. Nobody in the league is that team today. Assume you're going to have to get into a high-scoring game and try and win that, because Kansas City's winning all these games, I think in part because teams are trying to go, we'll stop them with a conventional game plan. They get up and find, look, they play Arizona this coming week. It's I think, the largest point spread for Kansas City in their team's history, or at least for like in the last 40 years. But then they've got the Rams, they've got the Chargers later on this year. So there's a couple of games where teams are going to be able to go and get in that kind of game. When they get to the playoffs, that's exactly what teams are going to want to do, is try and go toe-to-toe with them that way.
Another interesting one was actually wasn't so interesting, the final score 13-6, but the interesting part about it was Sam Darnold. I mean, there are people talking about up in New York about benching him. I heard the field conditions were awful down there, so when I heard that, I kind of figured it'd be an ugly offensive game. That's what we got.
I don't know many quarterbacks who, if you gave them Robbie Anderson the way he's playing right now, Jermaine Kearse and Quincy Enunwa and Chris Herndon at tight end, and the offensive line that they have, I'm not sure that there are many quarterbacks who do very well with that. Darnold is every bit as talented as some of these top flight quarterbacks. In college he looked like the next Andrew Luck, and I'm not saying that he's going to necessarily get to that level, but you got to give him better talent, because at least this is year one. Remember, Peyton Manning struggled in year one. So if I'm New York, unless I think Darnold, this is going to hurt his long-term development, I don't even think of benching him.
Yeah, there was some talk that the Eagles had made a play for Robbie Anderson, and they that the Jets didn't want to break that up. They wanted to give him keep the deep threat for him, but yesterday it didn't matter what they had because their offense was just absolutely inept, scoring 6 points in Miami. All right, Detroit, Minnesota. Is Minnesota's defense starting to get that swagger back? They were very good last year, disappointing at the beginning of the year. Is their defense starting to get that swagger back?
It is, and their offense is putting them in situations where they can pin their ears back and get after the passer. They set a team record for sacks yesterday, and think about that. This is a team that had the Purple People Eaters back in the 60s and 70s. So you're talking a team that's had some great pass rushers, Chris Dolman. You're talking a team that's had some top-flight pass rushing in the past, but Detroit's pass blocking was not good yesterday. In fact, it wasn't the worst of the week, believe it or not, but their sack volumes were that bad. And I think if Minnesota's offense keeps giving their defense these favorable situations, you're going to see more of the same.
KC Joyner's with us here. Atlanta beats Washington 38-14. I mean, they got up big. Washington tried to get back. They just don't have the offense to get back. I thought Atlanta, their defense played very well yesterday, although Washington's very one-dimensional. But Atlanta can score points. Are they back in this thing?
They are. I've got them near the top half of I think I put them in 17 in my ESPN Power Rankings for this coming week. And the thing is, Atlanta's passing game is going to have to lead them from here on out, because their run defense matchups the next few weeks are really difficult. So, they've got the kind of passing game that can do it, and teams can't keep up with their passing game. So, I think the schedule is favorable for them too.
Let's look at Washington real fast. They lose 2 guards, both out for the year. Richardson out for the year. I mean, they got all sorts of injuries. Are we watching Washington kind of crumble right before our very eyes? Does this look like a team that got that 5-3 halfway through, but in the second half of the season we're wondering what happened to them?
Yeah, it was going to be like last year. Injuries just crushed them, and I mentioned schedules as well. Next 4 weeks, Washington has a red-rated run defense matchup. They've got very, very, very difficult run defense matchups. Now you're replacing 2 offensive linemen. They're not going to run the ball near as much, and if they can't do that, that's a formula for them to win. That's going to be tough for them. So I think Washington's going to have a real tough second half of the season.
Carolina 42-28. They were up big in this one. Tampa Bay kind of got back in. Fitzpatrick starts throwing the ball around the yard a little bit, but Carolina 6-2. McCaffrey, big day. This Carolina Panthers team might be one that we're taking a little lightly.
A bit of a concern that they did allow the big comeback like that, but that is Tampa, and that's a very vertically aggressive offense, so maybe Carolina would have some problems against those sorts of teams. They got Pittsburgh coming up next, but then they got Detroit, Seattle, they got Cleveland in Week 14. They've got a stretch where they're not going to have to worry too much about that. But then weeks 15, 16, 17, they got New Orleans twice in Atlanta. I think Carolina's going to have to shore up that pass defense, because if they let that happen against Tampa in that half of the game, it's going to be a problem if they don't get to face a team who can do it a full game.
Yeah, a lot of these teams halfway through, they're tweaking and tinkering and just kind of using the screws a little bit here. Baltimore, they might need a full drill. They've lost 3 in a row now. Pittsburgh goes on the road, beats them 23-16. Connor, a big day. The Ravens lost 3 in a row now. What's wrong with Baltimore? And Pittsburgh starting to look like a team that may be able to challenge in the AFC.
Pittsburgh is very much a challenger in the AFC. I've ranked them 6th on the power rankings, and could have justified ranking them a little higher than that, because they're playing that well. They're blocking. So in fact, their run blocking hasn't been as good as Connor's performances have been, so they're capable of being even better in that area. Baltimore's got offensive problems. They lost their tackles. Had 2 tackles that had 4 starts between them, 4 career starts, so that was a big problem for them. They don't have a passing game. Their running game's not working very well. I think they need to make the transition from Flacco. He's reverted back to what he was, and maybe they put Jackson out there, but I think they need to consider it, because if your offense is playing this bad, you need to do something.
Harbaugh has come out today and said he will not consider a quarterback change.
I think he realizes that if he does that, he's saying that it's going to be a play for the future, and that's going to mean that it's probably the end of his tenure in Baltimore.
Well, there's some that suggested that he's on the hot seat out there.
Yeah, they have. Well, 4-5, and right now they're 2.5 back at Pittsburgh. Plus, they probably lose the tiebreaker because they split, and they've got the. It looks like they lose the other tiebreaker. So essentially, 3.5 out with 7 to go. You're not going to make the wild card with 4-5. They're not going to make the playoffs again. So yeah, he should be on the hot seat.
All right, Houston at Denver. Houston goes on the road. Not pretty, but hey, good teams find a way to win on the road. Denver's a tough place to play. Houston's won 6 straight.
And they might not make the top 10 in our power rankings based on what I saw from last week's rankings. They're just a team that doesn't seem to get the respect. I know they're beating Buffalo and Miami. They're not beating these powerhouse teams, and they're going to get tested. Actually, they're not getting tested down the stretch. Look at their schedule after their bye this next week. They go Washington, Tennessee, Cleveland, Indianapolis, the Jets, Philly, Jacksonville. They could win 5 of those games. This could be a team that could get 11 wins this year.
I said it the other day, so we said at the halfway point, who's your NFL Coach of the Year? I said it might be Bill O'Brien at the end of the day. 0-3, they win 5 in a row. They win that division. He might be the Coach of the Year.
And if he gets 11 out of this team, if he does get 11 wins out of this club here with the offensive line that it has, if he does that, yeah, he should get Coach of the Year.
Chargers win again. They not only they win in a tough place, and they did it pretty handily. 25-17, they beat Seattle. I mean, Seattle's not what they were, but to go up there and win, nice win for the Chargers.
Nice win. Their kicker really let them down. They just changed kickers
cost
today.
The Eagles a pick.
Yes, and he could have cost them the game if Seattle gets that touchdown at the end of the game, because he misses 2 extra points in field goal. In fact, he's the first kicker to miss a field goal and an extra point in 3 straight games since 1979. So that's how bad he was. But Chargers have a really favorable run defense schedule coming up, so I think they're going to be able to not only throw the ball like they have, but be able to lean on the run even more than they do. And they've got a good backup in Eckler, too. Gordon and Eckler take a 1-2 punch.
The whole kicker, Sturgis, was very solid for a year here in Philly. Then he got hurt. He just has never been the same. It's unbelievable, that story. The Rams-Saints, we could dive into this one. Goff, almost 400 yards. Not enough, though. What did we learn about these two teams in this particular game?
We learned that the Rams may not hold up as well in shootout games as you would think that they would. Their defense is not anywhere near as good as people think that it is. They've got a lot of not a bad defense, but it's not a great defense. And you saw their players chasing in coverage yesterday a lot more times than they should have. And New Orleans wants to run the football, and they still looked at that matchup and said we got to throw the ball out, which surprised me. So I think the Rams, they've got a bit of Achilles heel in that defense.
When you watch those two, is any other team in the NFC at their heels, or is it those two and everybody else?
It's still those two and everybody else. In the power rankings, I put the Saints 1 and the Rams 2. The Vikings, if they keep trending upward, they could get things turned around. They might be a contender there, and Carolina can get there if they can play their sort of game, but they're more of a formula team. But I really think it's those two right now, talent-wise, and everybody else is playing for free.
Green Bay, they've been a victim of a schedule, murderous row here. They had L.A. last week, New England this week. That game was 17-17. They're driving. Jones fumbles, and that thing just got away from them.
It did, and hey, they could have beaten the Rams, and they got the fumble there. Their schedule gets better. It's Miami, Seattle, Minnesota's a tough game, and then they get Arizona the next 4 weeks. I mean, they could get things turned around, but they're about 3-5-1 to 3-4-1 right now, and that's not a good place to be in their division or in the wild card. So again, it's a team that should be winning games, but they're getting out-coached, and it's costing them. And it's another McCarthy special.
Is that like Tomlining?
It's similar to Tomlining, but he just gets out play called, and you start breaking down the tapes and see teams are finding ways to just out coach him, put his teams into situations that aren't very good. And Tomlining is when you don't play you play to the other team's talent level, and Tomlin's been better about that of late, but that's still going to be a problem for Pittsburgh.
All right, we're halfway through. You said your power ranking did Saints 1, Rams 2. Who's your 3?
Actually, I'm sorry. I had the Chiefs 2 and the Rams 3. Sorry, I got that one.
So the Chiefs have jumped over the Rams.
Yes, in my eyes, the Chiefs have jumped over the Rams because of the Rams' problems yesterday. I got the Saints 1, the Chiefs 2, and the Rams 3. Because the Rams, again, that's a bad defensive. Marcus Peters, what was that? I mean, he's supposed to be the shutdown corner, and he's getting beat, and he's not chasing. And it's like, what are you doing? You got beat, and then you don't even try and run the guy down very hard. I mean, I don't get it. And he talked about in the postgame. He said, hey, I'm not playing you as well as I should, and I'll step it up. It's like, yeah, this is the Saints. You should have stepped up before that. You shouldn't be talking about that after the game. I don't get it.
Well, and the one thing that those 3 teams, none of them stand out defensively. I guess the Saints might be – I mean, people thought the Rams were going to have a very good defense. It hasn't panned out. Saints, one of the things with them last year was that they had a very good defense. I guess their defense is the best of those 3.
They've got a really strong run defense. Of the 3, they can stop the run. You look at not only their overall numbers, but the advanced run metrics, that they're stopping the run better than the other ones. So that's at least they can stop that. But doesn't matter because teams are going to, that's why I think they need to lean on the running game and don't need to try and get into shootouts because they have the ability to be able to stop the run and keep the low-scoring game going. But all three of those teams are positive. I think right now, if the Steelers keep playing defense the way they're playing, they're going to be a team in the top 6 that you say, hey, this team can win on two sides of the ball where other teams can't.
All right, so where you put Philly, are they far away from those two? Are they getting closer? You get Tate back. They're getting a little healthier here off the bye. Do they have a shot to kind of I find it interesting. Philly plays at the Saints a couple of weeks from now. I said, even if they win that game at the Saints, you're not getting home field against them. They're already 3 games up on you. If you beat them in the regular season, there's no way you're beating them twice in that building in the same year.
It'd be very difficult. I put the Eagles at 11 because I do a lot of emphasis on what your record is, how many games you've won of late. Are you're on an upswing or on a downswing? But again, if you're winning a division, I'm probably going to put you ahead of teams and things. So I got the Eagles at 11. They're not far away from being in the top 6 or 7, probably top 8 at least, maybe 6 or 7. But yeah, you're not going to beat New Orleans twice in that building. Having said that, if you go down there and do it once, maybe you do it one way and then figure, okay, we got to find another way to do that. I trust Peterson to be able to come up with that sort of game plan. He needs to be thinking when he's putting together that game plan, okay, what might I do in the second time I face these guys because I don't want to show them everything in my hand.
Well, and if you're Philly, you want the Rams to get the number 1 seed, right? You don't mind going to L.A. as much as you're going to New Orleans. You don't want to have to go there.
No, I don't want the noisy indoor building because the Coliseum just dissipates the noise. The fans cannot have the same sort of impact because they're so far away and it's that open bowl-shaped stadium. Whereas in your dome, those fans can turn the game around.
KC Joyner's back on Friday as we'll have full coverage of Eagles-Cowboys Sunday Night Football, which you can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, man.